okay. Yeah,
Back to slide 30.
okay.
I know this is specific to our code of conduct.
Right.
What if you learn about another competitor that is offering
Inducements.
for business to
Well,
hospital administrators and
if you do hear about that, you should let Bruce or myself know, and we can take that to our attorneys and see how to follow through on that. So, thank you. Okay, so now we're at marketing. United is committed to implementing its marketing and entertainment in compliance with fraud and abuse laws. United may provide refreshments or a modest meal at a meeting to market its service to physicians. However, no employee may offer anything of value to a potential or existing investor in order to generate referrals or to gain assistance to help us negotiate a contract. As it said on that slide, logos, pens, things of small value, those are okay. Okay, then off-label use, I just wanted to make a few comments on that, what that means and what that's all about. Once approved by the FDA, a manufacturer may not market or promote a drug for any use that's not specified in the FDA-approved product label. These uses are also known unofficially as off-label uses. A recent case that actually was just settled 2 days ago involved a Belgian pharmaceutical manufacturer which pled guilty to the off-label promotion of its epilepsy drug called Keppra and is required to pay more than $34 million to resolve criminal and civil liability arising out of its illegal conduct. Keppra was approved by the Food and Drug Administration as an anti-epileptic drug for the treatment of seizures in adults and children suffering from epilepsy. But the company disseminated posters and marketing information representing that Keppra could be used safely and effectively to treat migraines. And this was based purportedly on their independent investigator-initiated studies. The posters did not disclose that the company had actually sponsored these studies. So you cannot promote any product or device for an off-label use. Physicians, on the other hand, can use a device or medication off-label, but they cannot advertise for it and they cannot promote it. So there is a difference there. Code of conduct has some standards for if we would receive a subpoena or other type of communication. If an employee receives a subpoena, an audit letter, or any other communication from the government that requires a response from United, the employee should give that information requested to me or to Bruce immediately. All employees are required to report any contact, inquiry, investigation, proceeding, charge, or complaint involving any court of law or state or federal agency that is related to United or its operations. If a subpoena, audit letter, etc. is received, or if notified that one will be received, no documents can be destroyed and no emails can be deleted. Any employee or physician must immediately notify me in writing if they become the subject of or if there is presently or pending a request for information, inquiry, investigation, or proceeding, the outcome of which could result in that person's suspension or revocation of licensure or certification, or if they are excluded, suspended, or removed from any government or commercial payer plan or program. United is committing to ensure that its contracting practices comply with federal and state laws, regulations, guidelines, and policies. A hospital must never be pressured to accept contract terms in order to obtain or to maintain their referrals. A fundamental tenet of both the federal anti-kickback law and the Stark Law is that items and services are provided at fair market value. A physician may introduce United to a hospital, but that's usually the end of that involvement. The physician must not participate in the negotiation of the contract. United may not enlist a physician to help secure a contract, and physician referrals must not become part of the negotiation process. No one may threaten or imply that if a contract is not obtained or renewed, the physician will take his patients to another facility. Services should not be provided unless there is a written contract in place that is signed by both parties. Now, for laser services, we were given an exception to that because sometimes it can take a long time to get a counter signature on a contract for laser, and we have patients that need to be treated. So as long as we document our efforts that we took to get that signed contract back, and as long as we've signed the contract and sent the contract, then we're okay to do services. All of our focus arrangements are reviewed by our healthcare council, and then they're approved by me. The code of conduct has always had a lot of standards that impact billing and billing staff. All coding has to be accurate. If it's not documented in the patient's medical record, you've heard this before, then it didn't happen. Billing must ensure that charges are entered for the services we provided and that we checked on the text sheet or encounter form. We only bill for services using the appropriate CPT code. We cannot upcode for services. Upcoding is when a provider bills using a code for a higher paying service than what was actually performed. For example, a physician does a photo vaporization of the prostate, but that physician knows that if he bills using the CPT code for enucleation, he'll get a higher reimbursement rate. That's illegal, and that's called upcoding. We follow a messenger model for physician professional fee contracting, and we ensure that all physician fees are kept confidential and that each physician determines his or her own fees. We cannot bill for any drug samples or any free items that we receive. All refunds, once identified, must be refunded within 60 days or according to the terms that we may have worked out with the payer. As I've already mentioned, Medicare now has very strict rules that any identified refunds must be returned within 60 days. There was a very well-known case involving urologists that had billed for drug samples. And I'm just going to read this, but several urologists pled guilty to charges of conspiracy, paid restitution in the tens of thousands of dollars, and received sanctions against their medical licenses for billing Medicare for injectable prostate cancer drugs they received for free from 2 pharmaceutical companies. The pharmaceutical companies paid $1.4 billion for their part of the alleged scheme to give urologists free samples, and they encouraged them to bill Medicare at inflated prices. The pharmaceutical companies also provided urologists with additional inducements to use their drugs over the competitors' products, including drug rebates, grants, volume discounts, free goods, and debt forgiveness. So this was a very famous case.
Shine, shine, shine.
Julie,
Yes,
I have a question.
sure.
So if a physician calls the billing office during the time when we update our charges,
Mm-hmm.
and the physician asks someone in the billing office, you know, I don't know what to charge.
Mhm.
What are other physicians charging?
Well, I would never specifically give any individual physician's information out. In the past, when I have gotten that question, I have encouraged them to use sources. There's published sources where a physician can go and they can obtain the range. They can obtain the 90th percentile, bless you. And so there are sources that they can use to get an idea, but we shouldn't be giving them or helping them with those charges.
I'm not sure if that's a compliance problem, it may not be, but it's a federal trade problem. In other words, it's innocent, but you cannot tell another doctor what you're charging. Even I say, John Jones says, well, what are you charging for this procedure? I really can't tell him that, and I don't. It's not his business, but that's not a compliance problem. It's an federal, FTC problem.
Antitrust issue.
It's a whole different thing. So
Right.
It shouldn't be done.
Okay. Our code of conduct applies to our treatment of co-payments and deductibles. We make every effort to collect a patient co-payment and deductible. Routine waiver of co-payments and deductibles is not permitted, and patient balances are only discounted or waived in accordance with United's Charity of Care policy. We do not offer professional courtesy, and as a physician-owned company, this could be interpreted as an inducement, so we don't do it. We have code of conduct rules to follow related to the offering of investment interests to physicians. Only urologists may be offered interests in United Urology Centers without any requirement to use the services in order to invest first. Physicians cannot be required or pressured to sell interests if referrals are low or if they do not use our services. All investment interests must be sold and purchased back at the fair market value rate. And that's why on an annual basis, we go out and get a valuation of what an interest in the company is worth. When we start a new company, we make sure that the investor contributions are sufficient enough to capitalize the company. And pro formas are not used to induce physicians to invest with high inflated rates of return. You all are the eyes and ears of the company. If you suspect there's been any violations or potential violations of any federal health care program, the violation of our code of conduct, our policies, our procedures, federal, state, or local laws, as your compliance officer, I will investigate any and all reports. One of the things that we're required to have with our CIA is a form of disclosure, and so we do have a disclosure program. It's a way for our employees and our physicians to report compliance concerns. You can email me, or you can call me at work, or you can call me on my cell phone. All this information is available on posters, as I mentioned, at the fixed sites or the garage, or even in the billing office, and you can stop me too. I would rather have you stop me or call me to discuss the concern that you may have than to have a potential compliance problem that goes unresolved. Yes?
Let's say you send an email to a doctor and you realize that maybe you made a mistake, that it could potentially be a violation, and you're worried about getting in trouble if you've done something wrong. First of all, if it is a violation, what's your obligation as the officer to the OIG? Do you have to go to the OIG and divulge what happened? And can we get in trouble if we come clean, if it was a mistake?
Well, okay. We have had some emails that have been brought to my attention that could be problematic. I think the most important thing, and we're going to talk a little bit in the second session more specifically about emails, but is if you get an email or you send an email and you think it might be problematic, don't just let that be the end of it. Some of the sales reps have received some emails from some physicians with the physicians maybe saying that they were going to get somehow involved in contract negotiations. What you need to do is respond to that email, and that's what we've done. In some cases I have consulted our attorney, but in most cases either I or Bruce can formulate a response to send back that shows a trail that we didn't request them to get involved, and then we've tried to discourage that, and so we have the paper trail. If you send something